Okay, welcome back from lunch, everyone. Nice to see all of you guys here. I'm going to help you guys to understand breathing mindfulness meditation because now we've been doing it 3 times as a class. So now's a great time to go in and actually talk about it and teach you the ins and outs of it. And then we'll actually finish up our class today with a meditation. But it's helpful for you to understand all the ins and outs of meditation as you're developing your practice, because that's what this course is all about, is helping you develop a foundation. So now that you've learned a bit about the Eightfold Path, it's a great opportunity to go in detail and start teaching you about breathing mindfulness meditation. And just like always, if you guys have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask, and I will let you I answer your questions throughout the class. So I'll let you ask any and all questions that you like. So first, just some meditation basics to help you guys understand what I'm thinking about when I talk about meditation. Because of impermanence, everybody thinks about meditation in different ways. So your idea of meditation may or may not match with this, but at least when you hear me say the word meditation, you'll know what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is a technique to actively train the mind during dedicated, independent, purposeful training sessions to eliminate certain unwholesome qualities that are in the mind and to cultivate certain wholesome qualities that are in the mind. And you do this in the seated, lying, standing, or walking positions. These are the 4 positions that the Buddha taught because these different positions are needed at different times depending on what's going on in your day-to-day life, which we're going to talk about here in a moment. So meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session. You're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities. One of the ways you might think about it is you're taking your mind to the gym. You're exercising the mind, helping it to build certain qualities that you're going to need in day-to-day life. Same thing when you go to gym. You're developing the body to be able to have strength or stamina or agility or some other thing like this that you can use those qualities in your day-to-day life. So that's what you're doing with the meditation is you're developing certain qualities that are wholesome that are going to help you to be able to train your mind in your day-to-day life. And then there's certain unwholesome qualities that you need to eliminate as part of the meditation. And that's what you're going to be doing in your day-to-day meditations. Then let's talk about what meditation is not, because understanding what meditation is one way to understand meditation, but also by understanding what meditation isn't, it'll help you to understand what meditation is. Meditation is not exercising, walking the dog, gardening, driving, all these other things. Sometimes you'll hear people say, I'm going to go for a drive and do some meditation, or I'm going to go walk the dog and meditate, or I'm going to go for a jog and meditate. While these things might be very beneficial and you might actually appreciate doing these things, it's important that you don't consider them to be meditation, because if you consider these to be meditation and you hear me say it's wise for you to meditate 2 or 3 times a day for 30 minutes or more, if you just go walk the dog 2 or 3 times a day for 30 minutes or more and you think you're meditating, you're not going to be able to get to enlightenment this way, right? So it's important to know what meditation is not. So you may still end up doing these kinds of things, but just important that you don't consider it to be meditation. Then you're going to need a meditation teacher as part of your practice. As you guys heard yesterday, a Buddha is the only individual that could actually get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. That's one of the first criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. But everybody else is going to need teachers and guides in order to help them in their practice, in order to get to enlightenment, not just to learn meditation, but all the other aspects of the path to enlightenment as well. There's some people over the years that don't understand this and they run into all kinds of difficulties and all kinds of struggles. And I'll share one of those stories with you so that you understand how important it is to have a teacher. There's an individual who contacted me several years ago who had been trying to do meditation and kind of awakening their mind on their own by themselves. And after about 2 years of doing this through watching YouTube videos, reading books and things like this, they ran into a lot of difficulties and a lot of struggles. This individual was a practicing doctor. They were a physician in their home country, and they got to a point where they were having suicidal thoughts. They were sleeping 23 hours a day. Their relationship with their fiancée was falling apart. They weren't able to go to work any longer. They were having all kinds of difficulties. They were in deep depression. They were having overactive thoughts, like obsessive thoughts, repetitive thoughts over and over and over again. And they got in contact with me, and I let them know that I could help them and these kinds of things and so forth. Eventually, their case was so difficult and so challenging for them that I invited them to come to Thailand because it was too challenging to help them online. They ended up coming here for a period of time, and then I helped them here and I helped them back at home. And eventually they overcame all these things. They got back to work. They stopped sleeping 23 hours a day. They got out of their depression. They were no longer suicidal and all these other things that they were experiencing. They did lose their relationship with their fiance, but nonetheless, everything else worked out for them just fine. It took them about 4 to 6 years to work their mind out of that difficulty and struggle. And the reason why this all occurred is because they didn't understand that they are not a Buddha. They would not be able to get to enlightenment by themselves. It's almost like the mind can implode on itself. So you're going to need somebody to reach out to and ask questions to. So as you're meditating, as you're training your mind, you're going to need somebody. Whether you consider that to be me or somebody else, it's totally up to you who you consider to be your teacher. But you're going to need somebody to reach out to, because you can't ask a book questions. You're going to have certain challenges in your meditation practice and other parts of your life, and you're going to need to ask somebody, hey, is this normal? Is this is what I'm experiencing? You know, what's going on here? And if what you get back from your teacher is that's normal, just keep going, that can be some reassuring thoughts for you, that can build some confidence for you so that you can continue to go forward. So I don't suspect that you guys will ever have any of these difficulties and struggles that I just described with this person, but I just share this story with you to show you of how the mind needs a meditation teacher, that you're not going to be able to go out there and just meditate and train your mind and get to enlightenment by yourself. Only a Buddha would be able to do that. And nowadays we live in a very self-service world, which is great. You know, if you'd like to learn how to bake blueberry muffins, you can probably find a YouTube video about that, right? It's really easy to pull that up and learn how to bake blueberry muffins. And that's one of the beautiful things about the time that we live in, that we can do those kinds of things. But getting to enlightenment is not baking blueberry muffins. It's very different. You're going to need teachers and guides. And if you think about any time in your life of anything you've done, whether it's even something as like reading, writing, and speaking English, you've needed multiple teachers to help you do that, right? Certain aspects of your life, you needed teachers to help you do that. But sometimes with the arrogance and the pride and the ego in the mind doesn't want to do that. It doesn't want to go out and get a teacher. So you're going to need someone to help you and guide you along the path. So be sure that you have someone that you can reach out to occasionally or whenever it is that you need help to be able to get help on the path. There's these 4 positions that the Buddha taught in order to meditate in: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would need to learn these and practice them at different times. So I'm going to introduce you to these now and explain to you how to actually use these. But remember, you're not believing any of these teachings. You're not believing me. I'm sharing with you my experiences with these positions and how I've used them. But then you need to see the truth for yourself and figure out in what situations you're going to use them. So the seated position, to me, that's the primary position. That's like the go-to position. The vast majority of my meditation has been in the seated position. I would say a good 80% of it has been in the seated position, either sitting on the floor, in a chair. You could sit on a sofa or a bench or a wheelchair, any of these kinds of things. You could really sit however you're comfortable. There's not just one fixed way to sit, but you could sit on the floor, in a chair, and I give you guys instructions on that. Each time we meditate, I usually help you guys understand the guidance. But there's not just one fixed way. You've got to find what's comfortable for you with your body. So typically you're sitting on the floor, in a chair, you're sitting with your back upright, because this helps to keep your mind attentive and alert during the meditation. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. But there's other options, like putting your hands on your thighs or your knees or your palms up, or just resting them comfortably in your lap. So you find whatever's comfortable for you, whether you're on the floor, in a chair, or anything like that. When you're in the seated position, sometimes you notice pain in the body, and that's where lying position comes in. If you lie on the floor face up, in yoga, I think they call this resting pose or corpse pose or shavasana. They have different names for it, where you're just laying flat on the floor face up. This will rest all the muscles in the body. So if you're having like a bit of back pain or something like that, you could easily lay on the floor, and it'll rest all the muscles, and it'll help you to be able to meditate, because now the body can be relaxed and the muscles aren't tense or tight. But when you're in the seated position or the lying position, sometimes the mind has a tendency to fall asleep. You might actually notice this during your meditation practice. If you notice this, you could switch to a standing position or a walking position. These are both good if your mind is falling asleep. Some other times that I've used the standing position is, say that I'm at like a bus stop and I know that there's not a bus coming for 15, 20 minutes and there's nowhere to sit down. I might just stand there with my eyes closed doing some meditation, right? I might not consider it one of my 2 or 3 meditations per day, but it's like a little touch-up meditation. Or I've even used it like, say I'm like at a government office, maybe getting a driver's license or something like that, and there's like a long line, and this line only moves every so often, maybe every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, this line moves. I might stand there and do a little bit of meditation and do a little touch-up meditation. So you might use standing position in those kinds of cases too. You would just stand up straight, and typically you clasp your wrist in front of you, or you just put your arms along the side of you, or you lightly clasp them behind you. So you could decide for yourself how you would like to do that. What you're doing with the mind in these positions, it's all the same thing. It's just that your body's in a different position. Then there's walking position, which I'm going to teach you guys tomorrow. This is very intentional walking. It's not like you're walking to 7-Eleven or something like that. It's very intentional walking. So I'll teach you guys this tomorrow afternoon. This comes in when your mind's falling asleep and you're dozing off, but it's also really helpful if your mind's overactive. If you're noticing that you have a lot of energy and you tend to live like in an excited state, overactive mind where your mind's just thinking all the time, and the last thing you're thinking about is being still and sitting in one spot, this is really good for you, the walking position. So it can be good if you're falling asleep or if your mind's overactive. So these are the ways that I've used these positions. But again, don't believe me, right? You've got to see for yourself in what situations, what position works. And that's how you'll know the truth for yourself. So you might find other ways that these positions work well for you. So you can use these and use them in different situations, because you're not going to be able to be in the same position all the time. There was a time in 2019 where I got into a motorbike accident and I damaged my leg and I couldn't cross my legs. I could barely sit up. So I was lying in a hospital bed with an IV hooked up to me, but I could still meditate because I knew lying position, right? So you'd like to make this part of your tool belt where you have all these different tools available to you so that as you need a certain position at different times, you can use it. This seated position isn't permanent. You're going to need other positions at different times. So you can practice these so that your mind doesn't get attached to just one position of meditation. Do you guys have any questions on the basics of meditation? Anything you'd like to ask? No? Okay, so now let's talk about starting and conducting a meditation session. The first thing to keep in mind is that the mind is the boss and the body is the employee. What I mean by that is, in order to get to the boss, you've got to go through the employee. You can't just go see the boss. So the body needs to be comfortable in order to take you to go see the boss. If the body is painful, or if the employees are painful, they're not going to take you to go see the boss. But also, if the employees are luxurious, they're not going to take you to go see the boss either. So you need the body to be in the middle where it's comfortable. So you're never interested in just breathing through the pain or absorbing the pain, inviting the pain in, observing the pain. If you're noticing your hips hurting or your knees hurting during meditation, this is the body's way of saying, hey, there's something wrong here. Make some decisions to fix this. So the last thing you would be interested in doing is just sitting there with the pain. So you don't need to take a position and just stick with it. That would be the mind craving permanence. So if your knee or your hip is hurting you, there's no harm in changing positions. You could be 3, 5, 10 minutes into your meditation and you decide, whoa, my back's really hurting here. You might decide to try to shift a little bit in that position, or you might just decide to lay down. And that's okay. You can still be meditating like that. So you're not interested in just breathing through the pain. Because remember, meditation is to eliminate certain unwholesome qualities and cultivate certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So if all you're experiencing is pain, 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 you're not going to be able to cultivate your mind to eliminate unwholesome qualities and cultivate certain wholesome qualities. So you're going to need to go through the employee in order to get to the boss. You need to go through the body to get to the mind. So you'd like the body to be comfortable, not painful and not luxurious, but in the middle where it's comfortable. The Buddha talks about setting up mindfulness in front of you. Whenever he talks about meditation and he's guiding his students in meditation, he's typically saying, set up mindfulness in front of you before you start meditating. So this morning, I taught you guys what mindfulness is, awareness of mind. You would like to do something to build some awareness of mind as you're easing into meditation, that you don't just plop down into meditation and start meditating. Because if you tried that, it might be 5, 10, 15 minutes before you start reaping the benefits of your meditation. But if you can be doing something to kind of bring some awareness to the mind before meditating, then you can get benefit right from the beginning. So that's why I taught you guys chanting yesterday, because that's what I use in order to develop mindfulness or awareness of mind before you ease into meditation. So whether you do chanting or you do something else, it's up to you. It's your practice. If you don't do chanting, you're going to need to find something else that you can just bring some awareness of the mind as you ease into meditation. So you'll need to figure that out. Then in terms of your time, frequency, and schedule for meditation, let me ask you guys a question. Can you meditate at exactly the same time every day? Liz is shaking her head no. What about the rest of you? Can you meditate at exactly the same time every day? Some of you are saying no. Why can't you meditate at exactly the same time? Exactly. That would be permanence. You guys understand the universal truth of impermanence, right? So it's not possible to meditate at exactly the same time every day, right? I've been in meditation before, meditating, and my son walks in and says, "Dad, I need you to take me to school." I'm like, "Oh, really? I thought your mom was going to take you to school today." He's like, "Yeah, me too. She's gone. I have no idea where she's at." "Okay, I'll take you to school." Right? So I need to take him to school, and then I meditate when I come home. But if you're craving, if you're desiring, if you're longing, yearning, and holding on to this permanence that you got to meditate every day at 8 a.m., when something like this happens, you'll be frustrated. You'll be annoyed that your mind is causing this itself. So you're not going to be able to meditate at exactly the same time. The Buddha meditated 3 times a day, morning, midday, and evening. And this is what you would like to gradually build up to, where you're meditating 2 or 3 times a day for 30 minutes or more. Remember, you're looking to get your practice back to as close as what the Buddha taught as possible, because that's what's going to lead to your enlightenment. So if you know that 2,500 years ago, the Buddha didn't even have a timepiece, they weren't able to keep track of time back 2,500 years ago. They used the lunar schedule and the sun, right? So if you hear somebody tell you, you have to meditate at exactly 3:30 a.m. every morning, and that's what's going to produce enlightenment for you, right there, you already know that that's not true, because the universal truth of impermanence, is not possible to meditate at exactly the same time every day. And the Buddha wouldn't have known that it was 3:30 a.m. 2,500 years ago, because there was no timepieces back then. I can assure you that there's nothing special happening at 3:30 in the morning that's going to make your meditation any better or any worse than if you did it at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. or 10 a.m., right? There's nothing like that. So you can meditate whenever you like. It's totally up to you. It's your practice. But if you have these anchor points for yourself, that morning and evening you're meditating, this is what's going to produce enlightenment, that you're gradually making your way towards enlightenment through the meditation. So somewhere in the morning, somewhere in the evening, you would like to have a meditation. And then if you can get a midday one in, great. If you're going to meditate before you go to sleep, you would like to do that when your mind's still attentive and still alert. So if you usually go to sleep and you start getting sleepy around 10 p.m., probably 9:15, you'd like to be meditating. Because if you wait until 9:45 or 10 o'clock to meditate, you're already sleepy. Your mind's already drowsy. Your mind's not attentive and alert. But that's not to say you couldn't meditate at 5 or 6 or 7 p.m., because you surely could. Right? It's just that if you're going to meditate close to bedtime, do it at a time when your mind's already attentive or still attentive and alert, because once you wait until you're already sleepy, your mind's not attentive and alert during that period of time to be able to actively eliminate unwholesome qualities and cultivate wholesome qualities. So in terms of your time, frequency, and schedule, you'd like to do 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes or more. I don't suggest that you use an alarm during your meditation. Sometimes people do this, where they'll set up an alarm for themselves. And one of 2 things are going to happen if you do that. You're going to be in meditation, and you're going to be thinking, is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Your mind's going to be craving and longing and yearning. Or you're going to be deep in meditation, getting all kinds of benefits, and the alarm is going to go off. right? Or you could have gotten so much more benefit if you didn't set your alarm. So in situations where you don't need to set your alarm, it's best not to, like maybe the evenings or the weekends, right? But if you're on your way to work and you only have, say, 20 minutes and that's it, and you'd be late for work and get into all kinds of difficulties and troubles if you didn't set an alarm, then set an alarm, right? By all means, set an alarm. But in situations where you don't have to, it's best not to. The way that you can determine how long you've been meditating is about once a week. You would like to check in on your meditation. You look at your time before you start meditating. Okay, 9 a.m. Then you start meditating, and you just meditate for whatever amount of time you think is best. And then when you're done, you look at the clock again. 9:15. Okay, you've been meditating for 15 minutes, and you know that you would like to build up to 30. So now gradually work to expand that. So about once a week, check in on your meditation and see how long it is. I even do this today after meditating all these years. About once a week, I will check in just to make sure my meditation is at the 30-minute mark or longer. Because sometimes 5 minutes of meditation can seem like 30 minutes or an hour. But sometimes 30 minutes or an hour of meditation can seem like 5 minutes. So if you check in every once in a while, you'll know the actual truth of how long your meditation is. As I mentioned, you might notice some sleepiness during your meditation. This is pretty common when you first get started with meditation. Depending on how long you're sleeping now, you might not be getting enough sleep, or you might not be getting very good quality sleep. When you start meditating, you start training your mind this way, you might notice that your mind has more of a tendency to sleep, not just during meditation, but outside meditation as well. Your mind is kind of like a dry sponge that all these years you haven't been giving it what it needs. And now that you start training your mind, the mind's like, oh, finally, I can rest, I can relax. And you might notice some sleepiness in the mind. Well, if this is happening during your meditation, you can do one of two things. One is you can switch to another position. I already shared that with you, standing position or walking position. Or the second thing you could do is just get some sleep. If you're noticing that you're sleepy and you're tired, go to sleep, take a nap, and then when you wake up, do some meditation, right? No need to force it. No need to pressure yourself into meditating. If you need some sleep, get some sleep. And you're going to notice that you're going to start getting better quality sleep as you start to meditate. So you're going to awake more and more rested. You might notice physical sensations during your meditation. What I mean by this is like itching sensations and things like this. If you're noticing any of these kinds of things, what you would ultimately like to do is be able to go through the entire life cycle of that itch without actually scratching it, because this is going to train your mind to not crave permanent comfort in the body. But when you're getting started with your meditation, you might not be able to do that. You might be meditating, and 5 seconds into this itch, you're like, I just got an itch. And you go ahead and itch if that's what you need to do. But next time, try to make it a little bit longer. Maybe 8 seconds or 10 seconds, and then a little bit longer, a little bit longer. And eventually, you'll be able to see the full arising, changing, and fading away of that itch, because it's impermanent. You know that it's impermanent. So as you notice these physical sensations, try not to scratch them if you don't have to, and try to make it so it's longer and longer that you don't need to scratch them. Then you might notice visual stimulation during your meditation. What I mean by this is you might notice colors like green or purple or white or black or things like this. Or you might have vivid images that are coming to your mind. This is very normal. Sometimes people contact me and they're like, David, I saw green during my meditation. Does that mean I'm going to get rich and wealthy? Or I saw purple. Does that mean my boyfriend or girlfriend's going to come back to me? What does that mean? Right? It doesn't mean any of these things. I'll explain to you what this is, right? Sometimes people think they're a special person. That conceit will kick in. Okay. What's happening is when you're training your mind, there's physical changes that are happening to the brain. The brain and the mind are two different things. The brain is the physical organ in the mind, where the brain is the physical organ in the body. The mind is non-physical. It's intangible. You can't touch it. You can't point to it of where it's at. As you're training this mind, it has a connection to the brain, and the physical structures of the brain are changing. You can actually see this through research, and scientists and doctors, they're actually studying this. They have a whole field that's called neuroplasticity. They talk about how the brain physically changes, and they're they're researching people who meditate, and they can see the physical structures of the brain changed from meditating, right? So this is what's occurring. And your sight is actually occurring inside the brain. The eye itself is just a lens that pulls in light, where the actual sight is occurring inside the brain. So with your eyes closed, you can actually still see things because the eyeball is just bringing in light, but the sight is actually occurring inside the brain. And as the physical structures of the brain are changing, you'll see colors like yellow and purple and green and things like this. And it can be very pleasurable when you're seeing some of these things. So you need to be careful not to cling to it and hold on to it and want it to be permanent and wanting those pleasurable experiences every single time that you meditate, because sometimes it's going to happen and sometimes it's not. Eventually, you'll work your way through all these changes of the brain and you won't have these visual stimulation any longer. You might even hear the physical changes to the brain happening. I actually heard this while I was meditating at different times. It was like, you can actually feel it sometimes, not even hear it, but feel it. I used to walk around with a lot of pressure on my skull. I used to even get migraine headaches where I would kind of vomit about 2 or 3 or 4 times a week. Up to 5 times a week, I would get significant headaches and migraine headaches. After training my mind with these teachings, I don't have that pressure in the skull anymore. And I don't get migraine headaches. I actually don't even get headaches at all. The only time I'll get a headache now is like if there's something like air pollution and I just breathing in a little bit of air pollution, I might get a headache every once in a while. So you can get to the point where you've made all these changes to the physical structures of the brain. And this is going to be very beneficial for you as a human being, that now this being is going to be functioning in an improved way. Then you've also might have been taught to meditate with external stimulus. What I mean by this is that if you've been taught to meditate with like meditation beads or a phone app or candles or incense or music or any of these kinds of things, those things led you to where you are now. But in order to get to enlightenment, you're going to need to strip those things out of your meditation practice, because your mind can grab onto them and you can be attached to them. So if you can only meditate when you have that special candle with you, that means when you're 3 days into the mountains of Chiang Mai hiking on a trekking tour, you can't meditate because you don't have your special candle with you. Or if you're walking in a park somewhere and you're like, wow, this is such a nice park, I'd like to sit down and meditate. Oh, I can't because I don't have my special incense or my beads or my candle with me. I can't do it, right? So you're not interested in having your meditation practice be attached to something external. You only need 3 things to meditate, and you're going to have these 3 things with you all the time. You need the body, the mind, and the breath. Those are the only 3 things that you need in your meditation practice: the body, the mind, and the breath. And if you develop your meditation practice this way, you'll be able to meditate anywhere, anytime. It doesn't matter. Even laying in a hospital bed with an IV hooked up to you, you'll still be able to meditate. So this is how you would like to train your mind. So if you're currently using any of these kinds of things like music or phone apps or candles or things like this, I suggest you gradually move those out of your practice. The way that you can gradually eliminate unwholesome things from your life is, like, say with meditation, say you're using music. One session use the music, one session don't. One session use the music, one session don't. Do that for like a week or 2 and give your mind an opportunity to adjust to that. But then go 1 session with it, 2 or 3 without. 1 session with it, 2 or 3 without. And do that for a week or 2. And then expand it even more. 1 session with it, 3, 4, 5, 6 without it. And do that. And eventually you'll get to the point where you don't need this music anymore. Because remember what we learned this morning. Your mind craves permanence in the unenlightened state. And when you implement change and you're starting to create changes in your life, your mind's not going to like it very much. So if you can do it very slow and very subtle like this, your mind will appreciate that a lot more. And you'll find that when you're getting rid of unwholesome qualities, this is going to be much more comfortable for your mind. But you'll also notice that when you're cultivating your mind for wholesome qualities, Your mind will appreciate it this way too. So say you are interested in becoming vegan, for example, since we were just kind of talking about that. Rather than trying to go cold turkey and switching over to a plant-based food supply, you would like to do it gradually. That gradually, slowly but surely, you find new restaurants, you find new recipes, you find new suppliers for your food, and now you can gradually move this in. So maybe one meal with meat, one meal without, one meal with meat, one meal without, right? Or one day with meat, one day without, right? And you just gradually increment it, making it longer and longer and longer that you're eating maybe plant-based food, whatever it is that you're looking to get rid of that's unwholesome, or that you're looking to get into your life that is wholesome. So say I smoke cigarettes. The way that I would do this is not cold turkey, because the mind doesn't usually sustain that decision. So if I was smoking 20 cigarettes a day, which is a whole pack, I would go down to 18 for like a week or so. And now I would smoke those 18 cigarettes for like a week or so. Then when I feel comfortable with that, I'd go down to 15 and I'd smoke that for a week or two. Right? And now I'd do that for a while. And then I'd gradually go down, eventually getting to 1 cigarette a day, perhaps, one day with no cigarettes, one day with cigarettes, one day with no cigarettes. And then eventually expanding that even more. One day with a cigarette, 2 or 3 days with none, right? And now you can gradually ease the mind off of this so that the body and the mind can become more comfortable with these decisions that you're making. So it's almost like the mind doesn't even recognize what you're doing because you do it so slowly and so subtly. And as you do this, you're going to have slip-ups, right? Like maybe you're down to 12 cigarettes a day, and then one day you're going to smoke 13 or 14. Okay, no harm, no foul. The next day, get back to 12, right? And now just do 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, and then maybe you slip up and you have a 13th one. Okay, get back to 12. And now when you're doing that for a consistent period of time and your mind's fine with that, then go down to 8 or 10 or whatever it is. You just gradually move away from these things like that. So this is how you would like to start and conduct your meditation sessions. Any questions on this, starting and conducting your meditation? For those of you guys online, you can put questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Liz, you have a question? Okay.
Thank you, David. I have a question about the visual stimulation during meditation. Mm-hmm. I find that when I am, when I feel like I am the most focused on the breathing, I have very vivid images of like trees and forests and natural things, mm-hmm. and it's very it's very strong, mm-hmm. and I find myself wanting to continue to peer through that more, mm-hmm. and I'm wondering if that is, I get attached to that and I think, oh, this is a sign that I'm progressing. So I try to stay in that mindset to hold on to it. And it does dissipate because as I focus on it, it leaves. But I'm wondering, is when you talk about visual stimulation, is that the kind of thing that you're thinking about, that just let it flow over and be okay that it's coming and going? Is that a biological sign that the brain is changing, or am I misinterpreting that?
So the visual stimulation is things that you're seeing in the mind. So those kind of images and stuff like that, these can just be memories from this life or previous lives that are coming up in the mind. So that is visual stimulation. The colors are the ones that are from the brain changing, but this other stuff can be memories from this life or past lives that are coming up in the mind. No matter what, whether it's colors or that stuff, you're interested in cutting that off and letting it go. Don't allow the mind to grab onto it because it'll indulge in those kinds of things. And remember, you're with breathing mindfulness meditation, training your mind to let go. So if you invite that stuff in, you look at it, you play with it, you indulge in it, you're not training your mind to actually let go. So whenever those things are happening, whether it's colors or any kind of vivid imagery or anything like that, cut it off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath.
Thank you. And I just have one more question about that, because it is so vivid that sometimes when I come out of that and I look around again, I feel like not in this body. Mm-hmm. And then if I close my eyes again, I can go back and be comfortable there. But what you're saying is that that's that's not, because one of, just cut that off, let it go. That's not something that I should be at all consciously attaching to. It's just happening.
Yeah, you just like to let it go.
Yeah.
Don't allow the mind to indulge in it.
Right.
And you will experience what you just described, where you can start seeing the separation between the body and the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Some people talk about like kind of hovering over their body or being like in the corner of the room looking down at themselves.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you can see the body and the mind are two separate things. Sometimes people talk about like their head feeling like it's expanding, like the size of an elephant. You can sometimes experience these kinds of things during meditation. When any of this kind of stuff is happening, just cut it off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. But afterwards, when you look at it, you can see if you've had experience where like you've had this out of body experience, you can see that this body is not you and that the mind and the body are two separate things. That's an experience that's helping you to be able to cultivate some wisdom, to be able to see that the body and the mind are two different things.
Is there any way, as I get further along the path, to gain wisdom from delving into those memories of past lives, or is that something that's like way beyond what the scope of worry that I'm able to understand right now?
You're not interested in indulging in that during meditation. During your meditation, you're taking your mind to the gym, cutting off and letting go of anything that's coming up, training it to let go, right? But afterwards, if you reflect on what you experience in meditation, it can help you to confirm the cycle of rebirth. That's one of the ways people experience the confirmation of that, is through having observed their past lives. Observing past lives, while it's interesting, it doesn't actually do anything other than help you confirm the cycle of rebirth. And if you have certain cravings in this life that are coming from previous lives, it can help you see that. It's like, oh, wow, this is a craving that I've had for a long time. I need to get rid of it. Right. So this is kind of interesting for the mind. But in terms of like helping you eliminate discontentedness, it's not going to help you to necessarily do that. You still have to cut off and let go and build your mind to have that quality. Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Okay, Hugo.
While meditating,
Mm-hmm.
a very quick half a second thought comes in.
Mm-hmm.
By the time that I try to cut it off and let it go, it's gone.
Okay.
Then I just don't do anything. I let it go and keep going with my breathing. But
yeah.
it appears that the thought and the breathing are mixed with each other. I can feel the breathing and I can feel the thought. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, two things that I would say there is that as you're developing your mind with breathing mindfulness meditation, you'll develop more mindfulness where you're aware of these changes of your mind moving off the breath sooner and sooner and sooner, and you'll be able to catch it easier and easier and easier. So that's one thing I will share with you. The other thing I'll share with you is that also by doing this so frequently and building up the quality of your mind, you'll get to the point where your mind will automatically do these kinds of things where you don't even have to think about it, that it'll actually cut it off and let it go for you. Like initially, there's a lot of effort that you need to put in to actually do it. But then as you get more matured within your mind and you accumulate the benefits of meditation, and then outside of meditation, you're also cutting off and letting go, you'll be able to see that the mind will just automatically, it'll just boom. As soon as it notices a bodily sensation or some thought, it'll just cut that off right away.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Okay, so let me share some more things with you guys related to meditation. These are the words of the Buddha on the 4 types of meditation that he taught during his lifetime. Because nowadays there's hundreds and thousands of meditations out there. And some of these meditations are actually taking your mind in the exact opposite direction of what it needs in order to get to enlightenment. And you can really spread yourself really thin trying to learn all these different meditations. And it's actually not actually truly helping you. What you would like to do is focus in on the meditations the Buddha taught, because that's what's actually going to lead to your enlightenment. There's 2 primary meditations that he taught, and everybody would need to learn those. And then there's 2 specialized meditations that are only used in a case-by-case basis. But this is where he's teaching, or at least introducing, the 4 meditations that he actually taught. So before this, he was talking about some other things. He was talking about these 5 things that you need to do in order to make your way to enlightenment. And then he says, having based himself on these 5 things, meaning the 5 things he talked about previously, the monk should develop further another 4 things. So there's this first one, which is the perception of unattractiveness of the body should be developed to abandon lust. This is a meditation to help you eliminate sexual cravings. If you have craving for sex, maybe you have 3, 4, 5, 6 different partners that you're having sex with. Maybe you would like to bring that down to just one because you realize that's kind of wise to do that. There's a meditation to help you do that. Or say you're trying to eliminate sexual activity in your life 100%. There's a meditation to help you do that. This is a specialized meditation that is used in the situations where someone needs that. I do have it in the books and I do teach it in various courses and retreats that I share, but most often students are learning that on a case-by-case basis because they come to me and they say, hey, I'm having challenges with pornography, or I'm having challenges with masturbation, or I have all these partners and I'm trying to bring it down to just one. So there's a meditation to help you with that. So if you need help with that, you're always welcome to ask me, but I also have it in videos and books and things like this that I've done. Then there's loving kindness should be developed to abandon ill will. This is a meditation to eliminate anger, hatred, and ill will, and all the lesser versions like frustration, irritation, annoyance, even inner self-talk. Like if you have an inner dialogue that you're being negative and degrading to this being who you are, this meditation is going to help you to get rid of that and eradicate that from the mind. Mindfulness of breathing or breathing mindfulness meditation should be developed to cut off thoughts. This is the meditation that we're practicing in this particular course because it's a foundational course. This is the primary form of meditation that the Buddha is teaching because it's addressing the primary problem that he discovered, which is craving, desire, attachment. So we'll talk about that in a minute. These two, breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation, are going to be needed by every person who's interested in getting to enlightenment in the way that the Buddha taught, because it's addressing 2 of the major problems that he discovered in the mind. Then he's got this meditation. The perception of impermanence should be developed to eradicate the conceit, I am. When one perceives impermanence, the perception of non-self is stabilized. One who perceives non-self eradicates the conceit, I am, which is nibbana or enlightenment in this very life. So everyone on their way to enlightenment is going to need to realize non-self, getting rid of that personal existence view. But not everybody needs this meditation to be able to accomplish that. So this is another one of those specialized meditations. So what I've done here is I've listed them in order, and I'm showing you the unwholesome qualities that you're eliminating and the wholesome qualities that you're cultivating. So the Buddha really prioritized breathing mindfulness meditation above all the other meditations. So that's why we're starting with that in the foundational program. So what you're doing here is you're eliminating the unwholesome quality of craving, desire, attachment, where the mind's holding on. It's craving for things to be permanent because that's what's causing the mind to be discontent and form those discontent feelings. And you're cultivating the wholesome qualities of mindfulness or awareness of mind, and you're cultivating concentration or singleness of mind, being able to focus with a single-mindedness. So these are the wholesome qualities that you're cultivating that you then use in your day-to-day life. And you're eliminating the unwholesome quality of craving, desire, attachment. These other meditations I'll teach you at different times in the various courses and retreats that I have, but here you can see the unwholesome quality that you're working to eliminate and the wholesome quality that you're looking to cultivate as part of these meditations. These are some more words of the Buddha about meditation. He says, a pot without a stand is easy to tip over. A pot without a stand is easy to tip over. The pot is the mind. The stand is the meditation practice. A mind without a meditation practice is easy to become discontent. That's what he's saying. It's easy for you to become angry and frustrated if you don't have a meditation practice. So when you're meditating, it's like your stand is becoming wider and wider and wider. So as you dedicate more days, more weeks, more months to meditation, your stand's going to be becoming wider and wider and wider. And you're going to see your pot, the mind, is going to become more stable and more steady. So a pot without a stand is easy to tip over. A mind without a meditation practice is easy to become discontent. So developing your meditation practice is what's going to help you get to the steadiness, the calmness, the contentedness, the joy, the peacefulness in the mind. Here's some more about breathing mindfulness meditation. He says, monks, there is one thing that when developed and cultivated leads exclusively to liberation, to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge, experience, to enlightenment, to nibbana. What is that one thing? Mindfulness of breathing, breathing mindfulness meditation. This is that one thing that, when developed and cultivated, leads exclusively to liberation, to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge or experience, to enlightenment, to nibbana. So what he's saying is that this meditation has one goal, and that is to help you get to enlightenment. That's the purpose of this meditation. He's not saying you only need one thing in order to get to enlightenment, because otherwise he would have just taught meditation and that's it. We wouldn't have 45 volumes of books that are this thick, right? So you're going to need more than meditation. Essentially, the way that he's saying here is he's like, your car, it leads to one thing, which is transportation. Right? That's what your car leads to. It leads to transportation. But you need more than just transportation in your life to sustain your life. You need food, clothing, shelter, medical care. These are all things that you need in order to sustain your life. So here he's saying this meditation, it has one purpose and one benefit. It is to get you to enlightenment, to eliminate the strong feelings, to get to the peace, to get to enlightenment. Okay? So the way that you conduct your meditation session, which you guys have seen over the last 3 sessions that we're doing, is you develop your breath and you focus the breath on the sound of the breath or the sensation of air coming into the nose. That's the post, or that's the pillar. Essentially what your mind's going to do is it's going to be pulling in all these different opposite directions. It's kind of like if you had a post or pillar and you had 6 animals tied to these posts and pillars and they were being pulled in all these different directions. The alligator is going towards the river, the jackal is going towards the jungle, you see the monkey going to the forest, you see the bird going to the sky, you see these animals pulling in all these different directions. But because they're tied to this post and pillar, they keep getting yanked back and yanked back and yanked back to this post and pillar. Eventually, these wild animals are just going to sit down by that post and pillar because they've realized that they're attached to this post and pillar. So your mind is the same way. It's going to be pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling. And you just keep yanking it back and yanking it back and yanking it back to this post or this pillar, which is the breath, which is the sound of the breath that your mind is focused on, or the sensation of air moving over your skin coming into your nose. That's the post or pillar. And anytime you see your mind pulling, you yank it back to the post or pillar. Eventually, over time, your mind's going to get to the point where it's calm and it's going to sit down by that post or pillar. It's going to sit down by that breath and be completely calm. Each time your mind's having a thought and it's moving off the breath, you're cutting that off and letting it go and bringing your mind back to the breath. Realizing that the goal of this meditation is not to eliminate your thoughts. That's not what it is. You're never going to eliminate your thoughts. As long as you're alive, you're going to have thoughts. There's no harm in having thoughts. What you would like to do is get discipline and control over your thoughts. Even an enlightened being will have thoughts during meditation. But the difference is that when they have a thought, they're going to notice it right away and they're going to cut it off and let it go right away. Bring their mind right back to the breath. With an unenlightened being, they will have a bombardment of thoughts. It'll be like thought. Or you'll have a thought, you'll indulge in it, you'll play with it, you'll look at it. 2 or 3 minutes down the road, you're like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm meditating. Let me bring my mind back to the breath, right? So you're always going to have thoughts, even when you're enlightened. But the difference is that you'll have this quietness and stillness between your thoughts. So an enlightened being will have a thought, they'll notice it, cut it off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. It'll be quiet and still in the mind for maybe a good 30 seconds to a minute. And then they'll have another thought, but then they'll notice it, cut it off, and bring the mind right back to the breath, right? So your goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts. The goal is to get this discipline of the mind where you have awareness of the mind or mindfulness and concentration, and you can cut off and let go easier and easier so that you notice the thought sooner and sooner, and you cut it off and let it go easier and easier. So in meditation, you're cutting off anything and everything that comes up in the mind. Doesn't matter what it is. Even if it's a wholesome thought, you like to think about some other thing, cut it off and let it go. In daily life, you're only cutting off the unwholesome thoughts. So you have the thought that comes up in your mind that you'd like to punch your boss in the face. Cut that off and let it go. It's going to cause you difficulties and troubles, right? But if you have the thought to take your mom out to lunch or out to dinner, no need to cut that off in daily life. You can act upon that if you'd like. So it's just like a professional athlete. If I was a pole vaulter, a professional pole vaulter, I would go into the gym and I would do weight training, cardiovascular training, agility training. My training is going to look very different than the sport. And then when I go do my sport of pole vaulting, it's going to look very different. So you're training your mind in meditation to cut off anything and everything because you're building the quality to notice your thoughts and let them go easier and easier. But in daily life, you're only cutting off the unwholesome thoughts. You have some anger that's coming up, cut that off and let it go. You want to punch your boss in the face, cut it off and let it go, right? You're walking down the street, you're judging somebody else, you're looking down on them for some reason, cut that off and let that go. That's your own mind that's doing that. Cut that off and let it go, right? But you have a thought to take your friend out to lunch and buy him some pad thai. Okay, go ahead and do that, right? Maybe that's what you do. You're practicing some generosity, right? So no need to cut off the wholesome thoughts in day-to-day life, all right? So this is the meditation. So realizing that you're going to have thoughts during your meditation. All right, so the last thing I'll share on this before I invite you guys to meditate is this is some words of the Buddha. He says, meditate, monks, do not be complacent, lest you regret it later. This is my instruction to you, right? What he's saying is that if you don't meditate, if you're lazy and complacent about your meditation, you're going to regret it later. When you're angry, when you're lonely and bored, when you're feeling guilty and shameful and stressed and anxiety, you're going to regret having not meditated because your mind can't let go. One time my son came to me at like 11 p.m. at night or midnight, and he's like, Daddy, I can't sleep. I can't sleep. I was like, oh yeah, why is that? He's like, oh, they showed some kind of scary movie in school today, and I just keep thinking about it over and over and over again. And I was like, you haven't been meditating, have you? He's like, nope, I haven't been. I was like, see, just like the Buddha said, you're going to regret it later if you don't meditate, right? Because his mind couldn't let go, right? So I helped him to be able to see the truth and what the Buddha is saying. You're going to regret it if you don't meditate. So the Buddha never tries to guilt, shame, or fear you into learning and practicing his teachings because he's helping you eliminate guilt, shame, and fear. He's not going to use guilt, shame, and fear to help you eliminate guilt, shame, and fear. But this is the one thing that you will see from him where he's like, okay, go meditate. You should meditate, right? So for me, what I say, in addition to what the Buddha is saying, is never give up. Right? Don't ever give up on your meditation practice, because giving up on your meditation practice is basically like, yep, I'm going to be angry for the rest of my life. Yep, just going to be angry, just going to be frustrated. Yep, just going to be stressed and having anxiety the rest of my life. Giving up on your meditation practice is resigning yourself to experiencing these discontent feelings over and over and over and over and over again. You might go through periods of time where you're not meditating as much because things are shifting and changing in your life, but you would like to stay consistent with your meditation as much as possible. When you get really busy and there's a lot of things going on in your life, one of the first things you might think to do is drop off your meditation. But you should do just the opposite. When you're really busy and really active in life, you should actually be meditating more, because you're going to need that to be able to make wise decisions. If you get out there in the world and you're making a bunch of really quick, rapid decisions, it's going to blow up on you. You're going to experience all kinds of difficulties and struggles. So you would like the meditation there to help you be able to consistently make wise decisions in your day-to-day life. So I don't suggest you ever give up on your meditation. Like I mentioned, if you're meditating 2 times a day, in 1 month, that's about 60 meditations. You're probably not going to get to 60 meditations this month if you're just starting out, right? But if you got to 52 or 53 or 54, you're making your way to enlightenment. So your enlightenment isn't going to be determined on whether you miss meditation today or not. If you miss meditation today, it doesn't mean you're not going to be able to get to enlightenment. What you need to be able to think about is, if you miss meditation today, what do you do next? That's what's going to determine whether you get to enlightenment or not. Do you allow that to become not just one day that you missed meditation, but 1 week, 1 month, 1 year? Is that what you're going to do? If that's what you're going to do, yeah, you're not going to get to meditation or get to enlightenment. But if you notice, like, I missed meditation today, I better get back on that because that's a really good thing for me. And now you get back into your meditation, you're making your way to enlightenment, right? So if you meditate 52, 54, 56 times a month, you're still making your way to enlightenment. So just keep building up your practice. Understand that it's going to be gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress to gradually build up to that. Okay, so any questions on meditation? See if we have anything here online. No, I don't see anything. Okay. So what I'm going to do then is invite you guys to join for some meditation if you'd like. If you'd like to take a little 5-minute bio break, bathroom break, we can do that. Does anyone need a little bathroom break? Since you need a bathroom break? Okay, take your time. We'll wait for you. So yeah, use your bathroom, do whatever you need to do. We just got back from lunch. So when you guys come back, we'll start with some meditation. Okay, so those of you guys online, we're just going to take a little 5-minute bio break here. Okay, let's do some meditation. So as you guys know, we do chanting on the way into meditation. This just helps to ease the mind into meditation. It's not a rite or ritual or ceremony or worship. It's not prayer or anything like that. It helps you to build awareness of mind and ease the mind into meditation. It kind of slows and relaxes the mind into meditation. Once we're in meditation, I'll be giving you guys some guidance to help you along in your meditation. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're just all meditating together. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And remember, I'm slowly helping you to make your meditations longer and longer. This morning, we did about a 20-minute meditation, maybe a little bit longer. So I'm helping you to build up to that 30 minutes of meditation or more. So I'm just gradually increasing it little by little. Okay? So if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. And then I'll come back in with the guidance. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusranang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thoughts, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะกะวะโพตังมะกะวันหังอภิวาเตมิ สวากขาโตมหควตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหควโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสคาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Okay, any questions on meditation? Anything you guys would like to ask? Nothing right now? Okay. Well, you guys will have more chances in the coming days to ask questions in weeks and years and all those kinds of things. So this kind of wraps up what I was going to teach you on meditation. And now what we're going to be doing the rest of the course is each morning and each afternoon, we're going to be meditating, give you guys a chance to build up your practice. And tomorrow I'm going to be starting off with meditation, but then I'm going to be discussing the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots or the 3 fires. Today, you guys got like a window into the unenlightened mind where you understand through the 4 Noble Truths what's going on in the mind. But tomorrow we're going to broaden that for you and we're going to deepen it and help you to look at it more deeply through the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots or the 3 fires. And then I'm going to teach you the 5 precepts. After our mid-morning break, I'll teach you the 5 precepts. Then we're going to take our lunch break, and then I'm going to teach you walking meditation. So you guys will have that as part of your tool belt that you're assembling. So whatever you do today, have a wonderful rest of your day, and perhaps I'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay? Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap.